Hello all you freedom-loving people. Letitia James was indicted for bank fraud, and then she sued the Trump administration for cutting funding to New York City for being a sanctuary city. Putin apologized for harming his neighbor, and then he seems to brag about Russia's recent nuclear developments. Okay, let's get into it. Dominion Voting Systems is now sold and rebranded as Liberty Vote. The new owner is Scott Leyendecker, who is the founder of a Missouri-based election technology company. He previously served as the Republican director for the St. Louis Board of Elections, and he announced the purchase yesterday for an undisclosed sum. The press release simply reads, "As of today, Dominion is gone. Liberty Vote assumes full ownership and operational control." Leyendecker said he wants to use the renamed company to restore public confidence in the U.S. electoral process. He also vowed to be bipartisan, since it works to reshape Dominion's image. Leyendecker also laid out 4 goals, including restoring trust in U.S. elections and focusing on using paper ballots. Leyendecker said Liberty Vote is committed to delivering election technology that prioritizes paper-based transparency, security, and simplicity, so that voters can be assured that every ballot is filled in accurately and fairly counted. Leyendecker also plans on ensuring the company is 100% American-owned. This will include all domestic staffing and software development. Previously, Dominion was founded as a Canadian company with offices in Toronto, Denver, and Dallas. But apparently the new company plans to continue to have a presence in Canada. The press release of Liberty Vote also said that its actions will be in compliance with President Trump's executive order that was signed earlier this year on election integrity. It also said that one of its other priorities will be to facilitate third-party auditing of their election systems. Yesterday, New York Attorney General Letitia James was indicted by a grand jury on federal charges. The indictment that was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia charges James with 1 count of bank fraud and 1 count of making false statements in connection with property that she owns in Norfolk, Virginia. Prosecutors allege that James falsely claimed that a home in Norfolk was her primary residence, which allowed her to obtain more favorable loan terms. Based on the indictment, she rented the property to a family, which is an action that is prohibited by the loan terms if this was to be her primary residence. Lindsay Halligan, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, said in a statement yesterday that no one is above the law. The charges, as alleged in this case, represent intentional criminal acts and tremendous breaches of the public's trust. Halligan's office said that James could face up to 30 years in prison and up to $1 million in fines for each count. In response to the indictment, James released a statement on X saying that she will fight the charges. She described them as baseless and nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. She also said, "And my office will continue to fiercely protect New Yorkers and their rights." James was under investigation for mortgage fraud after Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte alleged back in April that she falsely claimed her Norfolk home as her primary residence in order to obtain a lower mortgage rate. Pulte further alleged that James may have also inaccurately described her home in Brooklyn. But James previously denied the allegations and accused the Trump administration of acting in a politically motivated manner. Before President Trump took office in January of 2025, James brought a civil case against the Trump administration that accused his real estate business of artificially inflating its assets to secure more favorable bank loans. A Manhattan-based judge in 2024 first ordered the Trump administration to pay a nearly $500 million penalty, but then that judgment was thrown out on appeal on August 21st. After numerous warnings of funding cuts over safety concerns and audits, New York Governor Kathy Hochul condemned the federal government on October 9th for cutting critical safety funding for the MTA public transit system. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy had also warned that since tax dollars fund the Metro Transportation Authority, the MTA, with billions of dollars annually to maintain, New York City must restore law and order or lose federal funding. He wrote, "The trend of violent crime, homelessness, and other threats to public safety on one of our nation's most prominent metro systems is unacceptable. After years of soft-on-crime policies, our department is stepping in to restore order." The MTA had originally planned to receive $34 million in federal transportation security funding for counterterrorism and transportation security functions. Last week, the MTA was notified that it would not receive the funds. Trump administration lawyers wrote that the MTA did not receive funding because it is located in New York City, which is designated as a sanctuary jurisdiction city. The federal government also claimed that the MTA could not receive relief because it was based in New York City. Attorneys for the New York State Attorney General's office stated that the claim appears to be based on a misunderstanding since the MTA is a state, not a city agency. Hochul stated that Washington's move was shocking. They are defunding the police, full stop. In a stark moment of hypocrisy, the federal government is literally threatening our ability to keep transit operations safe. Hochul vowed to take every possible action, including legal recourse, to ensure the MTA receives the critical funding needed to safely transport millions of passengers. The Transportation Security Grant Program was initiated following the September 11th attack. These grants, administered by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, are designed to support critical functions that protect public transportation systems from security threats. Last week, Governor Hochul successfully secured the restoration of $187 million in critical counterterrorism and homeland security funding that had been cut by the Department of Homeland Security. A presentation deck put together by FEMA showed that the MTA was the only agency of 21 that applied for the Transit Security Grant Program to be allocated nothing. MTA Chairman and CEO Janno Lieber stated that the MTA has made significant progress across all fronts, including safety, reliability, and ridership. It is truly baffling that Washington is cutting funding for both the New York Police Department and MTA patrol officers. New York Attorney General Letitia James swiftly filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration last week over the funding denial, prompting Manhattan federal judge Lewis Kaplan to issue a restraining order against the federal government. The Nobel Committee announced on Friday that the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize laureate is Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, not President Trump, who had been widely tipped for the award. The Nobel Committee said in a statement that Machado was a brave and committed champion of peace and a woman who keeps the flame of democracy burning amid a growing darkness. Machado is an industrial engineer known for opposing the authoritarian rule of incumbent President Nicolas Maduro. Maduro has been in power since 2013. Although she was barred from running for president by a Venezuelan court in 2024, she subsequently shifted her focus to campaigning for alternative candidate Edmundo Gonzalez. During Machado's struggle, members of her inner circle faced arrest. Several individuals, including her security chief during the campaign, were detained. 6 other team members sought refuge at the Argentine embassy after prosecutors issued arrest warrants. Machado herself currently is living in hiding. The Nobel Committee said Machado has been a key unifying figure in a political opposition that was once deeply divided, an opposition that found common ground in the demand for free elections and representative government. The committee released Machado's phone recording on social media. Upon learning of her award, she expressed surprise and said, "Oh my God, I have no words. Thank you so much." Machado can be heard saying during the call, "I hope you understand this is a movement. This is an achievement for a whole society. I am just one person. I certainly do not deserve this. Oh my God." President Trump's failure to win the Nobel Peace Prize may disappoint many, especially after he brokered the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. The reason President Trump missed out on the Nobel Prize may be because the nomination deadline for the award is January 31st each year. However, President Trump and Mikado have supported each other. In January of this year, President Trump publicly backed Mikado, who was under forced detention, calling her a freedom fighter. And Mikado also thanked President Trump for his efforts on behalf of Latin America after she received the award. She wrote, "We are on the threshold of victory. And today, more than ever, we count on President Trump, the people of the United States, the peoples of Latin America, and the democratic nations of the world as our principal allies to achieve freedom and democracy. I dedicate this prize to the suffering people of Venezuela and to President Trump for his decisive support of our cause." Russian President Vladimir Putin officially announced today that Russia is very actively developing and testing new nuclear weapons. Putin announced the new development during the Russia-Central Asia Summit in Tajikistan. He also claimed that Russia's nuclear force is now more advanced than any other nation's, and Russia may soon make a formal announcement about the progress of its latest strategic systems. The comments come after Putin recently floated the idea of maintaining warhead limits under the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or the New STAR, if the U.S. does the same. The New STAR Treaty, which was signed in 2010 and extended into 2021, remains the last major arms control pact between the U.S. and Russia. The treaty limits each side to 1,550 deployed strategic warheads and 700 long-range missiles and bombers. The treaty also places restrictions on Russia's most advanced long-range weapons, which can reach U.S. territory within about a half an hour. The nuclear treaty expires in February of 2026. At the Tajikistan summit, Putin said the remaining months would be sufficient to extend the treaty if the U.S. shows goodwill. He said that it would be a shame if the U.S. and Russia, the world's top nuclear powers, let the last piece of their arms control deal fall apart. But he also said that Russia's security would not be jeopardized if it lapsed. Actually, a few days ago, President Trump reacted to Putin's suggestion about extending the New STAR nuclear treaty, saying that it sounds like a good idea, and also, while Putin was at the summit, explicitly acknowledged for the first time that the crash of an Azerbaijani jetliner in December that killed 38 people was attributable to Russia's air defense systems. Putin made the remarks to Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev on the sidelines of a summit. Putin explained that at the time, Russia's air defense system had launched 2 missiles targeting a Ukrainian drone. The missiles did not directly strike the Azerbaijani passenger plane, but they exploded several meters away from the aircraft. The aircraft damage was primarily caused not by the missile warhead, but by debris from the missile explosion. The black box recordings indicate that the pilots initially believed that they had collided with a flock of birds. The aircraft diverted course after being hit, and ultimately it crashed in western Kazakhstan, killing 38 of the 67 people on board. Kazakhstan's preliminary report in February confirmed that the aircraft's exterior was indeed riddled with bullet holes. Putin took responsibility, saying, "This is our responsibility, and I reiterate that once again." Putin pledged that Russia would punish those responsible and provide compensation and legal assessments for the victims. Previously, Aliyev had publicly criticized Russia for attempting to cover up the truth of the incident. Following the incident, Putin had publicly apologized to Aliyev for the event, though at the time he merely referred to it as a tragic incident. The once warm relations between the two countries consequently took a sharp turn for the worse. In June of this year, the arrest and subsequent death of an Azerbaijani national in Russia, along with reciprocal arrests of citizens by both countries, continued to strain bilateral relations. Putin's apology appears to be beneficial for repairing the rapidly deteriorating bilateral relations with Azerbaijan. During the meeting, Putin stressed that Russia bears the responsibility to provide an objective assessment of the passenger plane crash and determine its cause, while expressing hope that both countries could move beyond the shadow of the incident. Aliyev in turn expressed gratitude to Putin for personally overseeing the progress of the investigation. More uncertainty is surfacing regarding the future of the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. President Trump wrote today, "Some very strange things are happening in China. They are becoming very hostile and sending letters to countries throughout the world that they want to impose export controls on each and every element of production having to do with rare earths. There's no way that China should be allowed to hold the world captive." In response, President Trump announced that he will counter and he will impose a 100% tariff on China starting November 1st, and he will add export controls on critical software, which will also take effect on November 1st. President Trump's decision came as Li Qiang, who is the premier for the CCP, went to North Korea today to attend the North Korea's 80th anniversary party. In the meantime, it remains unclear whether party leader Xi Jinping will travel to South Korea for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC summit. Li Qiang will lead a delegation of party and government officials to attend the 80th anniversary celebration of the founding of the Workers' Party of Korea and conduct an official visit to North Korea. South Korean military spokesperson Lee Sung-jun stated last week that there are indications that North Korea is preparing a military parade involving tens of thousands of participants and has mobilized military equipment. Political commentator Tong Jin-won, who is based in the United States, told the Epoch Times that Li Qiang's visit to North Korea is a rare event in the history of the Chinese Communist Party. Li Qiang is the premier of the State Council. This event marks the 80th anniversary of the founding of the Workers' Party of North Korea, and it includes a military parade. Such events usually fall within the remit of party-to-party diplomacy. Under normal circumstances, senior officials responsible for party affairs within the CCP would be expected to attend, such as the party leader Xi Jinping, or a standing committee member overseeing party affairs, in this case, Kai Chi. 10 years ago at the similar event, Liu Yunshan represented the Chinese Communist Party. At the time, he served as the secretary of the Secretariat of the Central Committee and as president of the party school of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party. He was responsible for leading ideological work. Tong Jin-won thinks that Li Qiang's attendance at the Labour Party's 80th anniversary celebration may have been arranged at the last minute. When Kim Jong-un visited Beijing to attend the September 3rd military parade and he met with Xi Jinping most likely agreed in person to attend North Korea's military parade. However, it turns out that Li Qiang is attending the celebration in North Korea instead. Tong believes that such an unconventional arrangement must be the result of something extraordinary happening or stemming from extraordinary circumstances. Shenming Shi, a researcher at the Institute for National Security Studies of the Taiwan National Defense College, believes that Xi Jinping's decision not to visit North Korea in person stems from two possible reasons. First, he may be concerned about potentially straining relations with South Korea, opting instead for a compromise approach. This is particularly relevant as he is scheduled to visit South Korea later this month. The second possible reason is that his health condition may not permit foreign travel, or he must remain in China ahead of the fourth plenary session to prevent any unforeseen developments. In July last year, rumors surfaced that Xi Jinping had suffered a stroke. At the time, the CPC was holding its third plenary session. Observers noted that no public footage of Xi Jinping appeared during the session, and even articles praising him were removed. Speculation arose that Xi Jinping had fallen ill, with some reports even suggesting that he collapsed from a stroke during the plenary session. Since then, Xi Jinping has been the subject of persistent speculation about his health at every public appearance. Concerns have been raised that he is in poor physical condition and he suffers from chronic illnesses. For example, the sequelae of stroke are evident, manifesting as balance dysfunction and cognitive impairment. Recently, during his visit to Tibet and Xinjiang, Xi Jinping was observed with a sallow, lackluster complexion and a slow, unsteady gait. During the military parade in Beijing on September 3rd, Xi Jinping's performance at the ceremony, whether he was welcoming foreign dignitaries, delivering speeches, reviewing the troops, or waving to the crowds, revealed noticeable signs of weakness. He laboriously climbed the Tiananmen rooftop, panting heavily beside Putin, and his speech lacked force and stamina. During the military parade, his body language appeared listless and utterly exhausted. But the health of the Chinese Communist Party's top leader is considered a state secret. Even during periods of poor health in old age, various methods, such as the use of makeup, are employed to project an image of continued vigor. So if media reports no longer conceal physical frailty, it can only mean that the illness is indeed severe or that the leader no longer warrants special disguise treatment. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.